Good afternoon, everyone. Historic blizzard unfolding in the plains. The headline sums it up. Unusual jet stream flows coming in from the Pacific, wrapping around the Sierra Nevadas, exploding over the deserts of the Southwest, flash floods in Death Valley, record rains in Arizona, and this is what it's turned into. Historic blizzard, 100-mile-per-hour winds, moisture from the Gulf colliding with an Arctic front and what it left in its wake. Blizzard warnings, flood warnings, high wind warnings, and everywhere you see on this map is where the high wind warning was. That's the orange or the darker gold colors, resulting in closure of freeways, not one but dozens of major throughways transporting goods across the central part of the U.S. closed down. The closed interstate list to the point, but they didn't even include Texas, which also has its own list. Winds blowing at reported 100 miles an hour, confirmed at 92 miles per hour in Colorado, blowing trains off tracks. What's this, 26 rail cars tossed off the tracks from wind? Record flooding, historic flooding. Where do we keep seeing this word historic coming from? Floods across Nebraska, I wonder if that'll delay the planting season. Floods in so many other places that it dislodged the ice because water is more powerful than the ice, sending it all downstream. Ice flows, clogging bridges, and the storm keeps moving. The tail end of this whip, already Alabama looking for 3 to 4 inches of rain, southern Tennessee. And it's more just the entire coloration in the center there, from that light pink all the way down into the brick colors. Wherever that is, extreme conditions. And as it moves north toward the Great Lakes, this is the Great Lakes preceding the front. Look at the atmospheric disturbance there. Comparing March 2019 on the left to the same type of storm, 1993 on the right, look at the bottom left. That's how much more powerful this storm is. Also, I lined these two up here. 2018 bombogenesis taking the regular track. Seaside coastal along the United States, but here's where the current track is. 2019, these atmospheric disturbances can definitely be mapped out using solar activity cycles. And the solar activity that's forecast is to take us back to a 400-year low in activity. So we're going to be looking at weather events that we haven't seen in 400 years of intensity. And here's another one. And during these uncertain times, I've teamed up with Patriot Supply long-term food storage. A nice, affordable starter kit. 2-week food supply, 1,500 calories per day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinners, plus the 4-gallon storage containers included in that. This is a good first step in getting more self-sufficient. And if you click through the Prepare with ADAPT 2030 page in Patriot Supply, you can get this starter kit for $75. Please remember there's a limit of 2 per household in this special offer. There's more to this winter storm than meets the eye. Yes, it's very unusual. Historic, even, as NOAA writes in the headline, 2 feet of snow, gale force winds, hurricane force winds. It was all due to this unusual jet stream set up last week, looking at March 7th or so. Huge front comes in, record snows into the Sierra Nevadas at this time of the year. Atmosphere is bent around the Sierra Nevadas, and what emerges on the backside in Arizona, all-time record floods, Death Valley flooding, and that was the impetus and seed point to get this rotation moving. More simplistic graphic here of the disturbance carve in the jet stream due to a weakening magnetosphere brought on during this low solar activity. Ended up turning into this bombogenesis overland. It's incredible. You can see right in the center not only the cyclonic motion but the clear air pushing up in there. And the winds are ferocious with this front, along with all the precipitation coming down. Wider out here into the continental U.S., over Canada as well. This entire system is going to pass through the Great Lakes and up into Canada. They're going to get pelted with an enormous amount of flood damage in the very near future. What was left in the wake of the storm already passing through the plains? Blizzard warnings, high wind warnings, flood warnings. And the blizzard warnings continued and continued. Simplified version of this area of low pressure. Now take in mind the scope of what they've shown where the low is and the periphery winds. But everywhere on this NOAA Weather Service map, winds over 50 miles per hour. And inside that black line is extreme hurricane force winds, literally. The force of a Category 1 hurricane at 100 miles per hour, and the snow drifts. And you hear about blizzards, but this is a true representation of what it is. The wind is moving so fast that anything gets buried in drifts that causes any resistance out there. All the highway cams you look at, not conducive for driving in these huge squalls where it's complete whiteout. Imagine driving through that and then non-stop for hours and hours, this exact same headwinds and icy roads and conditions. And these drifts and snow covered an enormous amount of our delivery system. Here we are back at the infrastructure again. Closed interstates during this storm. Now realize that's half the map, that Texas is not in here further down with their closures. I-94, I-29, I-80, I-25, I-70, I-76, I-90 in two different places, I-70 west, and all interstates in the Nebraska Panhandle. And then we go down into Texas as well, a vast array. And these are all the road closures just from Colorado Springs and periphery areas, 550 miles of interstate in Wyoming. And some of these images coming out, now this is farm equipment buried in the drifts, the barns on the left, tractors on the right, and I want to wide that one on the top left out here for you. You can get a good indication if you were driving on the roads and got stuck in this, how quickly your car would not be able to move. On the wind maps here, it actually looks like that eye of a hurricane southeast of Denver. And University of Wisconsin at Madison also showing that it was an all-time pressure record broken during this storm. So something in our atmosphere has definitely just upticked and shifted. A bit closer in here, notice the large central spin, but off to the right when you're getting over into the southeast U.S., you have those two frontal boundaries in there mixed so closely together. And as this thing continues to move to the northeast, it's spreading off in this direction of the arrows. Now notice the two arrows at the bottom right. That's the area where all the flood warnings are issued for Alabama moving forward up into southern Tennessee, Georgia. They're looking up to 4 inches of rain already. It's actually anywhere on this map. So if you're taking a look at the moisture that's moving with this front, I'm going to wide that out here, or something that extends all the way up to the New England states, or all the way down to the coast, wherever you see that coloration that's not yellow, anything else inside there is where these extreme rains are coming down. Expect unusual weather, to say the least. This is what the forecast is moving out over the 15th, 16th, and 17th. That dark blue is where the extreme moisture is. And speaking of the Great Lakes, look how the atmosphere is behaving preceding this event, rolling in, literally spinning in. And after the storm sweeps through, look at this record cold expected as well, not only with the minimum wind chills, some of those even below zero, but a lot of these readings 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a little low for this time of the year. I wonder how conducive the ground will be with all this extra wet and cold to propagate seeds and make them grow into our food. Wind gust reports, this pretty much covers it. Everywhere it's red and any pinks in there, that's where the massive wind front is moving through. Overland hurricane, cyclone historic proportions. Oh, another all-time barometric pressure reading broken. Second one during this storm from 979.01 from 979.9, almost a full millibar down. And look at the new wind speed record at the Denver International Airport. Old record 63 miles per hour, new record 80 miles per hour. A bit more than 20% increase in the wind velocity. These wind reports come out of Colorado, 92 miles per hour, Denver International, 80 miles per hour, and it's been reported everywhere, the same types of wind speeds. And of course, with this, record snowfalls, Cheyenne, Wyoming, old record was 9.3 inches in 1973, the new record's 14 inches. That's a substantial jump from the old record. And in these same areas, so lucky to have the street cams because this is what the road conditions look like on the interstates in Wyoming. So windy, in fact, 26 rail cars were blown off crossing that trestle, blown off the tracks. They say it was 104 miles per hour, but I think it had to have been higher to dislodge 26 rail cars. And as the bombogenesis cut straight through the central U.S., there were also these massive flood events associated with the storm. 6 different record crests, meaning all-time ever most recorded water in these rivers, and 20 river gauges showing major flooding, historic river flooding, and this time in Nebraska. So take a look at not only the amount of activity where these dots are registering different flood events, but from the air, Nebraska is a major grain producer. If it's like this in the major cities already, and you can clearly see a picture of fields behind there, what do you think the planting conditions are going to be like? Because it's going to be cooler soils and wetter soils. And why nobody wants to bring up the grand solar minimum when we talk about climate. And get ready for these changes. But here we are, flooded fields, delayed planting yet again, flash flood warning. And it just keeps rolling. All the record floods have broken all the ice that was in the rivers. Water more powerful than ice. So these record floods are pushing record ice flows right along with it. The National Weather Service put out this side-by-side 26 years different and 1,500 miles apart chart. Wanted to enlarge that for you. It's quite interesting. Left side, 2019. This is the current storm. Over on the right, 1993. At the bottom is where you see the black-white. Do you notice a difference in intensity in these two storms? Now maybe you can't see the black and white too well, so let me zoom it out here for you. It's about that much. And with this map here, it heads up on the Great Lakes, because where that yellow is and going into a little bit of gold, that's massive flooding right there. So I decided to put these bombogenesis events side by side as well. Top graphic, 2018 January bombogenesis. This current on the bottom. Do you notice a difference where they are in their locations? And this satellite image is mesmerizing because you get this entire second band pulling further south than Mexico, coming down to Yucatan. And behind that, there's another set of storms as well. Now, these changes in the atmosphere are predicted, forecast, using the sun. Now, the wider the wave that you see here is a magnetic field canceling another magnetic field on the sun. North and south are the two different colorations. Between red and blue, the wider the wave gets, the more intense our weather on our planet gets. We've just stepped from the yellow over into the green in solar cycle 25, and you can see how much more amplification there needs to go before our atmosphere has a chance to really stabilize into its new positions because of this declining solar activity phase our sun's going through on a 400-year cycle. Basic equation, the lower the solar activity goes, the more extreme our weather's going to become on Earth. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. And if you'd like to support this type of work, visit our sponsor at Patriot Supply. Your purchase helps keep ADAPT 2030 on air. Patriot Supply, prepare with ADAPT 2030. And also, I'm backing this series up on Brighteon. You can go to brighteon.com/channel/ADAPT 2030. Dig around in there, see which videos you like. It's a new platform, free speech, and I do support it. And you can also find me on Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast, anywhere podcasts are hosted across the net, and a rundown on ADAPT 2030 social media if you'd like to get your information in snippets of 1 minute or less.